Hey, I'm Chris Ekman. I'm a sales engineer at Sweetwater, and I am here in the Sweetwater Guitar Shop. So one thing that I get a lot of questions about from my customers is the Plek setup process. You may have seen that on our website before when checking out guitars, and I get a lot of questions about it. I know a thing or two, at least enough to talk about it intelligently, but I've never really seen it from start to finish. So that's what we're doing today. I'm super excited to see how this all plays out and how everything kind of works together.
One of the common misconceptions about the Plek process is that it's just put a guitar into a machine and out comes a perfectly set up guitar, when in fact there's a large team of people behind this that are highly skilled, trained professionals in every part of this process and know exactly what needs to be done to every guitar. We'll get a lot of the same guitar in that need a different setup and different service each time. And we're also setting guitars up to very specific customer specs, and we'll get into all of that stuff as we go through the process. Let's get into it and dive into the Plek setup process. We're starting at the prep stage. Before we do, this is the guitar we've got going on, and if you want to give it a little play test real quick, then you're good to go.
Yeah, I'd love to check it out.
Yeah, awesome.
All right. Feels pretty good.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, in fact, actually, it feels great, really.
That's the great thing about the Sweetwater process as a whole, right? Outside of just the Plek, this is the guitar out of the box, right? And so that highlights our gallery process and everything. But we're gonna dive in and make it even better.
When we are setting up an order with customers, what we do is we collect a lot of information up front. Just so we can make sure that the setup on the guitar is exactly what the customer's after. So I guess for today, like, I'm the customer.
Yeah.
I know a lot of times I put a note on there to just sort of leave it in the hands of the tech at their discretion. And generally speaking, that makes for a really beautifully playing guitar.
Yeah.
So I think probably in this case, that's what I would be after, is sort of like, what's your standard setup? You know, if the customer's not after anything in particular, what do you guys do?
With the guitar setup specs and all of that, it can all be a very subjective. I like low, little buzz and all that stuff. We can take those less objective sort of terms and make them into objective numbers, and that's what we have a great knack for. So when a customer says, I play jazz and I like lower action, very little buzz, and they've got high tension strings, we know exactly what kind of setup they're after and stuff, so that customers and sales engineers do have the chance to use those. Well, I like a loose playing guitar, you know, some of those more nebulous kind of terms. We can translate those into a great setup. We'll do that on this guitar today and see what you think of it.
Beautiful.
So the first stop we're at in this process is we're at the prep stage. The idea is for us to Plek the guitar with the setup specs pretty much already dialed in, because we don't want to just Plek these guitars from factory. We want to get the customer's requested gauge of strings and brand of strings on the guitar before it goes in the machine. That's why we actually asked to sell 2 sets of strings with the Plek.
Okay.
Is because one's going to go on in the pre-Plek process and then go through, and then we're going to get rid of that set and get a fresh new set for the final setup at the very end. So that's why those 2 sets are used. So that's what's being done at this stage. He's removing the factory strings and he's putting the customer requested gauge of strings on. We have all of that info on a service order, so we have all the items that they've gotten with it and everything. So if they were getting another service like tuners, we'd see that tuners were on this as well too, and they were getting that installed. This is just, you know, set up here, so we've just got strings with it, and so got 2 sets of their strings. He's going to get those strung up. Then what we're going to do is we're going to get the relief and action set to what we had set up for the spec sheet that you had outlined, which was a standard, you know, rock, blues, country setup, you know, something good for all across the board. And that is something we typically put at around, you know, 5/1000ths of relief, 4 and 3 action, and that's a good starting point for us to go into the Plek machine with.
See, I was always under the understanding that you put it in the Plek machine and then the setup came afterwards. I didn't realize there was work on the front end that was happening.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the great things about the Sweetwater Plek setup. It's going through a multifaceted process where we're going to polish the frets and do all that stuff, but we're taking that extra attention to detail, that stuff that might get overlooked in, you know, other operations or something like that, and we're trying to nail it down and make sure that everything is as consistent as possible as it's going through each part of the process. Yeah.
Cool.
And it makes it much easier on the back end doing the setup and everything like that. Big things here are checking the relief and then checking the action, getting that set, And then also checking just various nut heights and stuff, making sure that the guitar is good to go to the customer, you know, as well too. So,
cool.
Yeah. All right, so we're all set up here. So we're gonna take this to the machine room and get it loaded up in one of the machines.
Cool.
All right, so we're gonna get the guitar loaded into the machine now that we've got it all prepped up. Going over the anatomy of the machine a little bit. This is the actual mechanism that scans the guitar and goes up and down the frets. We'll see that in action here shortly. And then this is the cutter here, so that's what actually cuts the frets. So now that we've got it set in appropriately, what we're gonna do is we're gonna start entering in the data.
Lots of interacting with this. Like, this is very hands-on.
Yeah, very hands-on. The machine is not set up for one specific guitar. We have to make sure that it's loaded in correctly, that it's loaded in safely as well, so that the guitar is not going to get damaged, the machine's not going to get damaged, nobody's getting injured and all that stuff. And then, yeah, we have to enter in very specific details of the fret material, of the distance of nut to frets and everything like that.
What sort of measurements are you working in? Like, what increments?
We're talking in 10,000ths of an inch at that
10,000ths
point.
of an inch.
10,000ths of an inch. Stuff that can't be seen by the human eye. So
yeah.
We're able to diagnose potential neck twists that are developing and low spots and frets with the Plek process and see it blown up in a scan that we wouldn't normally otherwise able to see.
What all just happened? What was it doing?
We just got our initial scan, is what we call it, and it was that pointer finger that we were talking about earlier, basically going up and down all of the strings, measuring the fret heights at each fret. We're greeted here with this string graph, and you can barely kind of see it, but that orange line right there is basically the current fret heights as it stands right now, and then this green line is what Plek wants to see for the optimal fret heights. So you can see that we've got a little bit of high fret going on here in the middle. You can actually see a little bit going on here as well too. But what we're able to do is we're able to go into the next screen, and this gives us a more detailed view. So we can see E, A, D, G, B, E, so all 6 strings, and then these are the frets, first fret all the way up to 22nd fret. So that's a good way of looking at this graph. What you'll see here is you'll see a more blown up view of that orange and green line here. What this is indicating, the green line being higher than the orange line right here, is indicating that we have a low fret on the low E string of the 2nd fret. But if you go to that same fret on the B string, it's actually not a low fret. So that's how we're kind of able to save material, is a low fret isn't just a low fret for the whole thing. It's sometimes just a low fret on that string. Because wood warps and it twists and turns and all that stuff, and metal doesn't, right? And so we're trying to basically battle with something that is changed by the environment and something that isn't. So we'll get these little inconsistencies throughout here.
Not only is this about playability and, you know, just having a really great feeling instrument, it sounds like you're also able to, like, diagnose potential future issues and maybe elongate the lifespan of the instrument.
Moving on to the next phase of the process, we've got all of the green line below all of the orange line. So essentially we're cutting every single fret, and we are getting rid of these specific buzz values that we found here, and doing so with removing the least amount of material as possible. You'll notice that there's really not that much material getting taken off. When you're doing like a hand level crown and polish or something like that, you can't get to this level of detail. So you're probably gonna end up removing more than you really need to. Not that that's any fault of a tech or anything like that. It's just you can't see 10,000ths of an inch. And so we're able to do that and save as much material as possible. So what we're able to do, we'll just hit continue here. So basically we'll get this up to the neck here. So we're just gonna start making our way through all of these and loosening tension. And you'll see it very, very minutely, but the neck will start shifting itself forward this way because we're getting rid of tension. And so when the neck starts moving forward, we're gonna be able to use this feeler gauge here to wrap it around the fretboard of the guitar and then cinch it to the back. And then that simulates the neck relief that is in the guitar while it's up to tension to the customer's specs. We're gonna apply tape to the body of the guitar on the outside and just ensure that the strings are out of the way, because the cutter is gonna go across like this, and we don't want it to hit the strings and cut the strings, potentially damaging the guitar. Once we've got the tape applied and it's all secure, we're gonna get this strap around the back here. We'll get it nice and lined up. So this is what a guitar looks like right before it's about to go into the machine. Once we close the door of this guitar right now, then it'll just automatically start the cutting process.
Are we done, or what do we do now?
Yep, so it just went through its whole cutting process. You've seen that it went down all the way and then back up and did a couple passes each time. Basically what it was doing is it was taking off fret material in increments, basically, so that it's not causing any damage to the cutter. We've got a freshly plecked guitar now. You can see actually some fret dust hanging out on the side. And one thing you'll notice right off the top is these frets are crowned. These cutters are designed in a way that there's actually crowning ability in them. So as it's cutting, it's also crowning. So all we have to do after this is polish at this point, is polish the frets, make them shiny. What we are gonna do now is we are going to retune up the guitar into the tuning, pull all of the things holding the strings back and everything, and then we're gonna do the exact same scan that we did in the beginning. Okay. And what it'll tell us, either it did what we asked it to do or something went wrong, and we gotta figure out what's going on here with this play.
Quality achieved.
We are all finished, so we're ready to jump into the polish stage now. All right, so we're all finished up on the Plek side of things. Now what we're gonna do is we are going to polish the frets. See all those markings all over the frets there, and we just want to make sure to get those out. And so we're gonna sand those out basically using a couple different grits of sandpaper. We're gonna tape up the fretboard. It's basically a 4-step procedure of taping, sanding, buffing, and then cleaning at the very end. And getting the guitar cleaned up, basically. Ready for you to play test, so love to hear your thoughts on it.
All right, so without even picking this thing up, without even touching this, I'm just looking at the frets, I can tell something's happened here.
Right.
If I was just opening a case up, you know, just got this in the mail, and if I was opening this up, I'd be pretty floored. I am floored.
Yeah. And that's one of those things, right? Like, we have the scans available to send to people, but one of the ways that we see it is the shininess of the frets is kind of a visual way of almost kind of showing that the Plek was done. It's like, man, I didn't know, you know, frets look like this, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of a cool aspect to it for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. Obviously, it feels phenomenal. One thing I'm noticing is that no matter where I play on the neck, it pretty much feels consistent.
Yeah.
It feels the same.
Yep.
And the other thing I'm kind of noticing is that in my left hand, I don't know how to describe it, it's almost like I can feel more resonance kind of in my left hand, the way the guitar is kind of moving and vibrating.
A lot of that resonance that you're feeling, a lot of that you know, sort of sustain that you're hearing is those buzz values going away.
Okay.
Right? So what normally happens in a setup, like say for example, if this guitar wasn't plecked, we would have compensated for those buzz values by raising the action up a little bit or adding more relief, which makes it, you know, higher action, maybe a little bit more difficult to play, right?
Yeah.
But what we were able to achieve was that low action with almost a high action resonance, because we profiled those frets so acutely that we're able to get that action way lower than we would have otherwise, and we would have compensated by raising the action for those buzz values. And so we don't need to cut that corner anymore because we've leveled everything out, and so you can have a low action and a lot of sustain, a lot of resonance, and a very even sound throughout the board and throughout the frets.
Kind of gets you like the best of both worlds kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's feels awesome.
Glad you like it.
Yeah.
Glad you like the setup.
I can take this one home, right? So there we have it. That's the entire Plek setup process, start to finish. Thank you so much for having me and letting me kind of peek in here and see what you guys do. Yeah, I'm getting my next guitar plecked, without a doubt.
Awesome.
So thanks for joining us. If you have any questions about getting your guitar plecked, whether it's a new guitar you're buying or one that you already own, make sure to contact your sales engineer. They'd be more than happy to help you out.